Welcome back to Dry Hollow Homestead. This is Danielle, and in today's video we are going to make a natural mozzarella. So I have made mozzarella with citric acid many times, but doing a little research, you can find that genetically modified citric acid isn't always what you really want in your mozzarella. So if you are on the route to the journey to making more of natural cheeses, I really suggest this book. I do not use this all the time because I am a very busy mom. I have 5 kids, 1 on the way. We homeschool and we homestead, and I love all the ideas and the information he gives in this book, and I'm sure I will dive even more into it later. I've read it cover to cover several times. But a lot of it is by look and feel, and sometimes I need exact directions, which is where my other cheese making book comes in. But this mozzarella is a great version that you can do without citric acid. So I will be using David Asher's book, and I will link that in the I will link it in the description box below. But it is a really great resource if you would like to go more on the natural, not needing to use mesophilic or thermophilic store-bought cultures to start things. You will always need rennet though. That is something you cannot go without. Okay, so we are going to make this mozzarella cheese today with 2.5 gallons of fresh raw milk. But if you have a cow of your own, make sure that this is milk that has already been cooled, very cold, from the fridge. So I'm going to go ahead and get this milk in here. I'm pretty sure, that this fits 2.5 gallons. So I'm going to go ahead and load this up. This is my favorite container for milk. I always have that linked in this description box. I'm making a 2.5 gallons pot full of mozzarella today, but you can use whatever increment of gallon you want. It is going to need 1/2 cup of lemon juice or vinegar. I have not used apple cider vinegar, but I have seen that some people do, or balsamic vinegar, maybe even white vinegar, I'm not sure, but I'm using lemon juice. I have that. Because I'm doing 2.5, I'm going to be using 1.25. So for every gallon that you have, you use 1/2 cup of lemon juice or acid. That's the main thing, is to have something to acidify your milk. But you need to have cold milk when you add this acid. As I am getting this milk poured into my pot here, ooh, that has a lot of cream. I wanted to go ahead and let you know some of the things you're going to need. So like I said, you need a 1/2 cup per gallon of lemon juice or apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar. Like I said, I'm using lemon juice this time. You are going to need a separate pot on your stove that you're going to have very hot water. We will actually check the temperature of that and make sure it gets up to the temperature we need when we get there. And you will also want just a wooden spatula. I like the not curved ones, but it really doesn't matter. And this is very handy. Now you can use, a slotted spoon, but this is a cheese making, I don't know what it's called, maybe a curd spoon. I'm not sure, but I will link one in the description box. Not necessary, but very handy to have. And then you're also going to want to have a separate bowl that you're going to have cold water and keep it in the fridge. Yes, you can. Go ahead. And a strainer. So this does not take a cheese press or anything, and a lot of these types of pots and stuff you probably have in your kitchen right now. Get all this in here. I think I can fit. If I can't fit 2.5, I guess I could just do 2. I usually just do 2. Oh yeah, I can do it. You have to have faith. It can be done. Now we are actually going to dilute our acid in some water, 2 cups of water. That will help for this milk not to curdle as soon as we put the acid in. Okay, so I have my 2 cups of non-chlorinated water. This is actually water from my Berkey. And I am going to put my lemon juice. This is 1.25 cup of fresh squeezed lemon juice. You can use the bottled lemon juice too in there, and I'm going to give it a good stir. When you need to go ahead and add your acid to your milk while it's still cold. So we haven't turned the heat on or anything yet. So let me go ahead and pour this and stir kind of quickly while you go. You do not want to let this acidify too fast. But if you have cold water or cold milk and you have diluted it with the water, that will prevent that from happening. So you don't want to curdle your milk. Okay. And that is all for now. We are going to slowly warm this up to 90 degrees. Oh yes, you will need a thermometer. I will link one in the description box, but you definitely need a good cheese thermometer. Okay, we are at 90 degrees. I turned off my stove. I'm not heating this milk anymore. I have a 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water that I am going to dilute my rennet into. This is what I'm using today. You can use, there's lots of different rennets you can use. I would say, I think that it's usually about 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon if you're using raw milk. Store-bought milk will be a little different. You're going to need more, but this is not store-bought. This is raw milk from my cow. So just give it a swish, and then we're going to stir it in, or pour it over, and then we are going to stir it in a up-down fashion throughout. And then we're going to put the lid on this and let it solidify or coagulate for at least 30 minutes, and we'll check for a clean break at that time. So this is doing awesome so far. There has not been any curdling. You do want to stir it a few times while you are building up to 90 degrees with that lemon juice in it, with your acid in your milk, because you do not want it to curdle, and that will help. So we have it. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead, put the lid on it, and set a timer for 30 minutes, then we will come back. Alright, our 15 minutes is up. I'm going to check for a clean break. Pull. Oh, that's pretty clean. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and now cut our curds. To cut your curds, you can use just a long knife, or this is actually a curd cutting knife. We're going to cut curds into a 3/4 inch piece. So I just make a grid in my coagulated cheese right there, and then I go back through with a 90-degree angle in each place that I have cut from all 4 sides, and that gets pretty dang close. It's definitely not perfect. When you're doing it at home, it usually will never be perfect. That looks good to me. Now we are to stir for 15 minutes. Stirring gently at first. We're just going to stir until the consistency is poached egg consistency. In a separate bowl, we have 2 quarts of just cool water, of cold water, and we're going to dissolve a 1/4 cup of salt into this cold water. This is where we're going to actually, once we have stretched our mozzarella balls, this is going to be the brine that we set our balls down into once they have been stretched. And I use just a Kirkland pink Himalayan sea salt. And that will be, like I said, our salt brine once we have stretched our curds. Still stirring this every few minutes. We have 3 more minutes on the timer. I just don't want it to clump together. You stir until you see a poached egg consistency, which we need a little bit more. Okay, I have drained out my curds into the cloth-lined colander, and I actually have it over top of a bowl, and I'm just going to let this strain out now for 30 minutes. Okay, our 30 minutes is up. I went ahead and dumped our mass of curds into a bowl. I'm going to take a curd knife, regular knife, it really doesn't matter, and just cut it into strips. This just is going to make it easier to work with instead of trying to work with that whole big mat. So this is what I cut it into. There you go. We have our hot water here. This is right under 150 degrees. I'm going to put one of my sections here in the water and we'll test it and see if it starts to stretch. So we'll give it a few minutes, about 2 minutes of being in this water, and then we'll try stretching and seeing if this is going to stretch well. It doesn't always, it's kind of a hit or miss until you get the exact amount of acid that you need for your milk, and that kind of varies if you're using raw milk and how old it is. And this is just probably 2 days old, this milk. And then it also varies a little bit if you're using store-bought milk compared to this. So we'll give it a few minutes and we'll check for the stretchiness. Okay. Give it a little stretch test. It's looking pretty good, actually. It's looking pretty good. So we give it a stretch. If it does not break apart, then you have done it. You have made a beautiful, stretchy pasta filata cheese.
Could you help me?
You kind of fold it in on itself to make a ball.
Mom, could you?
So you're going to form it into a ball after you've gotten it to stretch. And then whenever you have it the way you would like it, you can put it in your salt brine. I'm just using a couple sections at a time, letting them warm up. Oh, it's kind of small. Maybe 3 at a time. Knead it onto itself a little bit. Might turn this heat up just a wee bit. This is going to be making pizza tonight. We do a very simple pizza with a sourdough starter. I can link that in the cards above right here. I went ahead and fed my starter a little bit earlier today, but I don't make a dough at all. I just use my starter. We have cans of pizza sauce that we put up in the cellar during the summer harvest. And then we have our homemade cheese and our sourdough. So it is one of our favorite farm fresh homestead foods. It is our pizzas. I have to say, these little balls are beautiful. I think that looks good. I'll put it in my, submerge it in my liquid. Alright, I think we are down to our last wedge. Yep. And I just cut it into, maybe 8s or something like that. But I had a real big pot. I had 2.5 gallons of milk that I turned into mozzarella. If you were doing more like a gallon, you could probably just do 4. It wouldn't take near as long to stretch, but it feels very domestic to do this, right? Now, if you are stretching and it pulls apart like that, like this, you can see it ripping a little bit. Just dip it down, get it in the hot water again. It is kind of messy, and I didn't end up using my gloves. 150 degrees. I don't put my hand down in it, but it's not so bad. It's not so bad if you're doing it this way. Giving it a good knead. Whew. It's crazy outside. Look, and I didn't even use my ladle, my cheese ladle. So we're going to be storing it in the salt brine in the fridge just for 2 to 3 hours. Go ahead and use it if you would like. And then after the 2 or 3 hours, go ahead and pull your balls out of the liquid, the brine that you have, store it in another container in the fridge. And as whey gathers at the bottom, or salt brine gathers at the bottom, go ahead and pour that off. That will help it stay good longer. But this is only going to be fresh for about 2 to 3 days. This fresh cheese you need to either freeze at that point or use up in 2 to 3 days. So you can freeze the whole balls of mozzarella, or you can go ahead and shred or slice with a knife and then freeze even faster, thawing at that point. But it does thaw out pretty well. Now it will have a different consistency, but if you're putting it on pizzas like we always are, or on top of a casserole, it works out great like that. So I do suggest, if you are on that natural route on cheese making, definitely pick up this book. I will eventually get into all of his recipes and using kefir and cultured buttermilk and clabber as a starter. But right now in my life, that seems to be a little over my head and what I can do every day. But this is a great way to, dip your toe into the natural cheese making world, and pick up this book if you're interested in doing that. God bless. I hope you make this cheese and you have delicious pizza. God bless.